Hi everybody, Robin Hyatt here. Let's see, give me a second here. Okay, we're going to... You get to see my exercise bike, by the tree. And you're listening to my dog roll around on the couch. We are going to do a special session today. I have not done this in a long time. And I am doing a channeling session. And I've had many people ask me to channel more events of Mormonism. And this is just a portrait of a young girl that someone painted as a woman named Fanny Alger. Fanny was married to the prophet Joseph Smith for just about 3 years, they suspect, while he was still married to Emma. They believe that this 16-year-old girl was his first polygamist sort of wife. It was before polygamy was announced or accepted as prophecy in the Mormon church. So this was a prelude to his polygamy stance. She was married by Levi Hancock to Joseph Smith in the late 1835, they believe, or early 1836. She was 16-ish years old. She had been a house maid or house help for Emma and Joseph at their home. And that's how he got to know the family. Her parents were one of the first ones to join the church in early part of Mormonism. And they were very stalwart. The father, I believe, was a carpenter, and he built homes and buildings. The mother was the first to join the church. They were very strong, and I believe they knew Joseph Smith pretty well. So I'm going to let Fanny, I'm just going to give you some information that we have as recorded from actually the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that this did happen. They can't bury it because this is just a part of the writings of even Brigham Young's wife wrote about Fanny, and that he married her and he kept it quiet from Emma. The only people that knew was Levi Hancock, which I believe was the brother of this girl's mother. And Levi Hancock was very stalwart participant of the Mormon church. And I do believe that, because last night I kind of had a vision, and she's going to kind of go over that vision that I had last night of how Joseph worked his way into this girl's life and convinced her to marry him and convinced her family that it was okay. I believe in this vision that I had that Joseph Smith presented to the parents that if this is commanded by angel of God for Joseph to marry this young 16-year-old girl, and that if the parents will allow him to marry her, they will have their way into heaven. It is signed, sealed, and delivered. You're good. So if you allow this to happen, then you are good for all time and eternity. And they were very faithful to Joseph, and they felt that this was true. And they convinced Fanny that this was true, and she did marry him. They thought it was approved by God. So then I wrote some things down that time went on after a few years of marriage, and she still was the help to Emma in their home. No one knew about the marriage except these few people. And then all of a sudden, on that last year of their marriage, Emma started having suspicion. And I don't know if the word got out and the women were talking, or my suspect was Fanny became pregnant and she couldn't hide the pregnancy anymore. And Emma was becoming suspicious on who could have gotten this girl pregnant. The only man around her was Joseph. So it is written that one night Fanny and Joseph went to the barn, and this is where they were having their rendezvous. And Joseph could not get enough of this girl, and I kind of felt that in the channeling session, that he felt like a giddy schoolboy as he was having sexual relations with his young bride, and that he can get away with it. He thought this was amazing that he could get away and convince people like he was. And so Emma followed them out, and she looked through the planks of the barn, and they had set up a bed, and she saw them having a relationship. And then she knew for sure that he was sleeping with this young girl, and that the baby that this young girl's carrying is probably Joseph Smith's. So Emma threw a fit. And I didn't know how it all played out, but Annie, through this channeling session, kind of let me know exactly what happened that night. And Emma, supposedly, the rumors were that this is all written and documented, that Emma threw her out, this young girl out, and that Joseph had to bring Oliver and him, and they had to work on convincing Emma that this was okay, or to actually, he asked Emma to forgive him for this, because this is before polygamy, and so it is written that he asked for forgiveness and Emma did forgive him, but Annie had to be shipped out of state. So she was shipped out of state. Her parents took her immediately to Indiana. They found a guy that was a grocer, baker, guy living in this town of Indiana. I think it was Dublin or something. And so they quickly married her. Within 2 months, they married her with him. She says in this session that the baby is Joseph's. It did live. The church says that the baby did not live. And then the church said a couple contradictory things. First, that this baby did not live past birth. And then the second contradictory thing is they said that they did DNA on this child from the 1800s, and it's not Joseph Smith's child. Well, if the church says a child died, how do they know the lineage of this child? So Fanny is going to give us the truth on what happened to this child, and why she stayed away from Mormonism and Joseph Smith, but still kept in contact with Joseph Smith. There was something underlying there. Okay, so let's see. So Anne Eliza Webb Young, who was married to Brigham Young, and this woman was one of the wives of Brigham Young, and she ended up divorcing him. She said that Fanny stayed with her and her family after Emma found out about the affair, which probably is, this poor little girl was devastated over this. So let's start there. I want you to know that Fanny did bear a son. Her first son was Orison Smith. And then she named after the second name. So the middle name of the son was Smith. Church said that this child died. Annie will tell you different. And so there is a lineage of Joseph Smith that is from Fanny and her son. She did have 9 children. Only 2 of her children lived. And let's see. Oh, she married Solomon Custer, is who Fanny was married to in Indiana, and she stayed in Indiana uh, for the rest of her life. And her family left her, and they went back to Missouri and then to Nauvoo. Um, and she stayed sealed to Joseph, supposedly. All right, so let me see if I can get this playing. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think it's this one. Let's see.
We're going to channel Fanny, Alger. Alger or Alger?
I think it's Alger. Hopefully you can hear that.
I'm here. It's time for me to tell my story. It's time for me to speak my truth, because the truth has never been told. I did not share it when I was alive.
No barking.
There was a reason I did not share it. I was protecting people. My name is Fanny. I came from a good home, a strong home. My parents were strong, forthright, misguided. Thus, they were misguided in their decisions of me.
Cammy, stop.
Joseph Smith came into our lives, and we went into the Mormonism. My parents felt, my father mostly, that it would advance him in the kingdom of God. Joseph took a liking to me as I was young. I was just a young teen when I first met him. People told me I was a beautiful little girl, and I went when I was of age to work and assist Emma Smith in her home while Joseph was out and doing what prophets do. He was gone quite a bit, thus leaving me with Emma. She was kind, strong, tired. She was tired all the time. She was sad. She tried to put on a happy face, but there was a deep sadness in her. She wasn't being fulfilled as a person. She had a secret. I know now what the secret is, but I didn't know then. But when Joseph was around, she was happy. He buoyed her up. He was full of lightheartedness, tales, stories, and just jovial, which made her happy. But she did have a dark depression in her. It could have been from her children and the loss of children. I was too young to understand this, but she was a good woman to Joseph. She obeyed him. But she also spoke her mind. Came a day when Joseph took me out for a walk. We walked to the edge of the forest and sat down by the tree. He did something very strange that day. As I sat down on a log, he knelt before me. I thought this was odd. He had tears in his eyes, and then he told me that an angel of God came to him and told him that he needed to bring plural marriage upon the earth. And this was hard for him to accept. But the angel told him that I was to be the first plural marriage. I was 16 years old. I was scared. I didn't understand. Girls did marry young, but I wasn't ready. I felt so young. But he cried. And then he asked me if I would accept what the angel said. And this was an angel of God. How could I deny it? And I told him, if this was what God wanted, then I will obey, because I love God. And I cared for Joseph, but not in that way, because he was older than I, but I admired him, but did not love him. He looked at me with tears in his eyes, and he smiled when I said this. And he said, "This is good. We will wed tomorrow." Then he kissed me on the lips. It was my first kiss. I was not to say anything to anyone, because the Lord commanded it to be quiet, because the people would not understand at this time until it came to full recognition. Thus Joseph said. That day he left my side, and he talked to my family and told them what the angel had said. My father was proud, for this blessed them more than it would bless me. For Joseph told them that they have their way into the kingdom of God now, if this marriage is allowed. And through their faithfulness, they will be blessed, and they will live with Jesus and God again, and rule and reign with them. My father thought this was to be so, and he was very proud that Joseph chose me to be his first plural wife. Thus my family was at my wedding. Uncle. We were married, sealed together through the blessings of heaven and Mormonism. And I was married to Joseph that next night, in secret. A home was offered to us. I was so scared. I knew nothing about anything of marriage and after marriage. But Joseph taught me. It was not beautiful. I was scared. And it hurt. And I cried. And then I was to stay home the next day and not go to Emma's. I told her I was sick, and for a few days, as Joseph came to me every night. And then I grew to understand being a wife, and I fell in love with Joseph. He was easy to fall in love with because he was kind to me. But he would come to me every night. And then we had to go find a place where we could be alone together as I worked with Emma. Because he would beckon me every night like a teenage boy. So we found a place on his land, his property, where we could bed together. We would laugh and giggle, do silly things. He said I gave him great joy, and God was pleased with me, which gave me great joy. I didn't understand it, but it's what God wanted, so I did it. I was happy, but then when I worked with Emma, I was scared that she would find out before the Lord would tell her that it was right. We were married for a few years, and then it happened. I became with child. I told Joseph, and he said I must not tell Emma. She is not ready. The Lord has not given him the commandment to bring this forth, so I must hide myself with child, which was fine because I was a thin frame. But then towards the last part of the pregnancy, I could not hide it. She knew. She saw it. The only man that had been around me was her husband. And then one night, Joseph beckoned me to come to the barn. Even though I was with child, he had to have me. He says he just couldn't live without me. And so we did bed together. But that night, Emma had many suspicions. Other people were murmuring of our relationship. And Emma did go to the barn also, and she did see us together. I can't even imagine how she felt. The betrayal, the hurt, the pain, which she already had pain in her, and this just made it more. She ran back to the house and locked the door. When we were done, I was to go back to the house, and he was going to ride on into town. I could not get into the house, and she scorned me and called me filthy names. and I pleaded with her to let me in, and she would not. I had to walk miles back into town in the dark, for I had no place to go. Joseph found out about this and rode home immediately to appease Emma, to tell her he would not go there alone. He went with Oliver because I think he knew Emma. Because now that I have crossed over, I understand the truth. That Emma knew that this was an affair. Joseph was a liar and a fabricator and a fornicator. And Emma knew, and Oliver knew, and Joseph knew that this all was made up, and that Joseph could not tell Emma that this was by God or an angel, because she would know it was not true. And she knew the truth. And somehow, through days of talking with Emma, they appeased her. And I was to move away with my child, never to see Joseph again. I did move away. My family took me to Indiana. They found a young man there, and he married me quickly as I was pregnant. So the baby would have a father, and I would not be scorned in society. It was quite the scandal. It was very scandalous. The whole town was uproaring over it. There was a little scandal in my town that I came and was quickly wedded to a man I didn't even know. But he was a good man. He was all right. And we had many children. But I bore a son. It was Joseph's son. I even named his middle name Smith, after Joseph Smith. You see, the relationship did not stop there. Joseph wrote me quite often and professed his love for me, and that we would be sealed forever. And so I went along my path because I knew that Joseph and I would be together again in heaven. And our son would be sealed to us. And he was protected now, my son. For this is why I spoke nothing of anything, because Joseph was still the love of my life. The Lord would bless us in the hereafter, and I had his son to protect. I have heard that the church has somehow gathered DNA of my son from the 1800s, which is not so, and they said that he was not related to Joseph. I can tell you, I was 16 years old. I was 18 when I became a child, and Joseph was the only man that I've ever been with, and it was his child. Joseph did send me money quite often. Once a month I received some money from Joseph, as much as he could allow. And I believe now that I have passed on that that was hush money and support of his son. I did not see Joseph again. I just received letters from him, which were quite disturbing to my husband. I had a large family. I enjoyed my family. I was a religious woman. I found a church of my own and loved God because I knew that I needed to stay close to God. So when I died, I could join Joseph. My heart sank when he died, when he was killed. I still believed in him. And I've always felt sorry for Emma because I heard of the many women that Joseph was being sealed to, which also broke my heart because I thought I was the only one. So there is the truth. It is simple. And when I crossed over, I learned that this was not truth, that this was nothing over in heaven, that once you walk out of this life, all of the religion and all the rules fall away, and then you reside with God. There are no rules with God. Even though it is greatly organized. I suppose maybe that is wrong. Maybe there are rules. They just are followed. There's no consequence for not following the organization of God, if that makes sense to you. So no, you can do whatever you want upon this earth in the way of religion, as long as it does not harm yourself or another person. But when you cross over, it all falls away. What it comes down to is, have you served your fellow man? Have you loved them? How have you cared for them and the earth? That's all that God cares about, is what you have learned, what you have done, and what you have done to make yourself a better person. If religion does this for you, then follow it. But you are to never judge another person. You are only to love. And that is the greatest message I can give you. And this is my story. Joseph Smith's lineage passed on through me, as with many women, that he had several children, countless children, but you would not know it, for their church hides it. Their church hides quite a bit. The church is not as righteous as you think it is. There's a lot of blood on the hands of the church, which started early on, towards the end of Joseph's life. And his successor, Brigham Young, brought on full dictatorship, and much blood is on his hands. Thus it proceeded forward. So know the history of your foundation of faith, because it may not be so righteous. It may not be of God, because God would never command another man to take the life of another man because he does not follow him. This is not true. Think. It has to be derived from love. Think of Jesus. And what would Jesus do? I must go. Thank you for this opportunity for me to finally speak my words, as I was the first wife in polygamy of Joseph Smith.
Okay, guys, I think she said it perfectly. Um, I'm going to go into a few more um, pieces of data of Mormonism later. I want to go into more of the Danites and the construction of the Danites, why the church needed a group called the Danites, which were a bunch of thugs and murderers, and give you some names of those that began the Danites and the chief of police of Mormonism. Um, I think, even though I've been out of the church for dozens and dozens of years, and I don't even feel um, any love or loss of Mormonism in my life, because I feel like I've really obtained quite a bit more insight and spiritualism and blessings since I have left the church, and more freedom. The freedom is amazing when you leave the church. If you can get past the guilt that has been instilled in you, once you free yourself of that guilt and live your life like all society lives, um, it is quite amazing to have choice and freedom outside of a cultish religion. And I just, I've been getting a lot of people asking me to do more on Mormonism, and more of these channeling sessions, so we can kind of know the truth. Because I think the truth is written out there, but it's buried. I think the church probably has bought quite a bit of the writings that are truth, and they're hiding it, because the church now is such a dominion, it's such a power, and it's shocking, if you could really know the depth of this church and what it's involved in. Um, and but as Fanny said, if you are to stay in the church and you're loving your fellow man, serving God, and being the best person you can be, raising the best family that you can, and you feel Mormonism is to be your foundation, then that is fine. Just know that when you cross over, it's going to fall away. So if you think that you're working so hard in this life to attain your godhood, it doesn't matter. So basically, enjoy your life and be the best person that you can be. I think is a key example in this life. Peace out. Have a Merry Christmas. We'll work on the Danites. I know it's not a very um, Christmassy story, but I feel like this is something that needs to be covered. I love you guys. Thank you very much, and have a great day. And enjoy. Bye bye. And Merry Christmas.